Hi, today I'm here with Dane Sanders, CEO at Tell Me Your Dreams, a coaching program that helps employees discover, declare, and pursue their individual dreams while increasing their engagement, motivation, and performance at work. How are you today, Dane?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on, 𝐂𝐨𝐳𝐬𝐬𝐿.
Hey, my pleasure. Maybe we can kick off with just a little bit about your background.
Yeah, my exposure to business started actually in my undergraduate degree. I did a degree in marketing. And by the end of my degree and a little bit of work, I figured out that I had learned how to manipulate people to buy things they didn't want or need. And I felt gross. So I did the next logical thing. I went to grad school and I studied philosophy, which for those of you who are listening know that's a fantastic recipe for unemployment or teaching. So I became a teacher. And what I studied in grad school was actually Aristotelian virtue ethics. So like, how is there a good life and how would you actually become a good person if you could, and so on. And really enriching. But that's really the beginning of what launched my life's work around how does someone not just survive, but thrive, really flourish in life. And somewhere along the line, I ran into someone I'm sure most of your audience knows, a guy named Seth Godin, who had a profound impact on me, both professionally first and then personally, and really helped form my thinking around what it means to do marketing ethically, to do business ethically, to reframe capitalism as a stakeholder approach as opposed to just having the stock price go up kind of approach. And so that really reframed things. And then the other significant influence for me was a guy named Donald Miller. He spends a lot of energy around how do you craft a brand narrative and how does story actually work, both for individuals and for organizations they're leading. And the combination of those two, that thought pattern, really helped frame my own work as I get a chance to serve at Tell Me Your Dreams, but also the organizations we serve. It's been really profound in thinking through how do we do work more humanly and how can we do that in a way that isn't just altruistic, but is strategic, actually can help make a massive difference for your bottom line as well as for how you sleep at night.
Well, thanks for sharing those inspirations that really helped shape you today.
Hmm. Yeah. It's humbling work, man. Building a business and enrolling people to come work for you and give you their best and to have them thrive while your business is thriving. Like, it's complicated. I think entrepreneurs are heroes. It's really tough to be a boss these days. And I think when folks, it's pro sports, it's easy to sit down on Monday morning and be critical of what happened over the weekend with athletes who are actually in the arena, as Brene Brown likes to say. But the real entrepreneurs who wake up every Monday morning and have to get to work, they don't have time to be a Monday morning quarterback. Those are the ones that I'm really impressed with, especially when they aren't just trying to be exploitive and capitalistic in a negative sense, but really are leveraging capitalism for what it was meant for, which was to create real value and wealth for all the folks that are contributing to that contribution. So it's really honorable work. It's humbling to do this work, but it's the kind of work that really animates me, gets me excited to get up on Monday morning too.
That's true. It doesn't come easy for sure. Let's jump into the three principles that attributed to your success.
Yeah, it's funny. I was in a conversation many years ago with a kind of a controversial figure. He's a conservative, a guy named Bill Bennett. And Bill wrote the Book of Virtues and a bunch of different stuff. He was a conservative thinker. But what I was really impressed with was I asked him a question about conversations and how do you have a good conversation, especially if the person you're talking with sometimes is on your team, but sometimes is antagonistic or an opponent. And he actually quoted Aristotle, and I had never heard this, but he said, Aristotle said, there's three great contributions to a conversation to make it good. And the three pieces are: first, you need to have intelligence. People need to be thoughtful in what they're bringing to the conversation, whether that's doing their homework in advance or having a take and really thinking it through, or even just presenting their rationale, not just their conclusion. So there's the kind of the intelligence bit. The second part of it is that we need candor, the ability to speak plainly. It isn't theater. We're not pretending and dancing around the issue. We're just speaking straight and to the point where people understand exactly what you're talking about. There's clarity. So intelligence, candor, and the third is goodwill. The assumption that the person on the other side of the table actually is not just trying to take advantage of you, not just trying to screw you. And when you have all three of those parts, it's like stools on a chair. Take away any one of those legs and the conversation falls over. But if you can somehow manage to have all three of those consciously in play, almost every conversation has the potential to be transformative, to open up possibility where before they would close down. So if you think of like a conversation with your spouse or partner, or you think about a conversation with an employee or a client that's really tough, man, if you can have those three things, intelligence, goodwill, and candor. And what I'm asking myself is, am I willing to bring my best mindset, my best thinking, my best assumption of goodwill for the other person, assumption of positive intent, and really my willingness to speak the truth, even when I'm a little scared sometimes. That has a transformative power that is uncommon and really can open up what we're all trying to do, which is move the ball forward up and to the right.
I want to know, how do you turn this into some practical steps for somebody to incorporate in their day to day?
Yeah, so of the three, the easiest one to assume is intelligence, right? So whenever you're in a conversation and you're just getting a little edgy and there's a tough thing coming, you're not sure if this person's trustworthy or whatever, the first thing I would do is I would declare up front practically, hey, every great conversation, Aristotle said, intelligence, goodwill, and candor need to be there. So intelligence, check. You're a smart guy or you're a smart woman, and I'm just glad to be in this conversation with you. I'm going to bring my best thinking to you. I'm going to meet you there. Second, I just want to declare out loud that I believe you have goodwill. And I want to declare to you, I have goodwill for you too. I'm just going to say it out loud. And then third, I promise, because we have those two things in place, I'm going to speak plainly and truthfully in this conversation. So it's like meta communicating and talking about the communicating that you're about to have. And what it does is it unlocks the conversation. It's one of the more practical things you could ever do. And it takes 10 seconds, 15 seconds to just declare your rules of engagement for how you're going to have a conversation. And I promise anyone who's listening to this, if they actually try this, like tonight over dinner with their kid who's having a hard time going, or a troubling client, or an employee who wants a raise or wants to quit or something, I promise if there's any potential life in that conversation, it will come alive just by declaring that up front.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a conversation earlier today about framing agenda, and you're almost going beyond that. We're framing the specific goals of the conversation or the quality of the conversation you're looking to have.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's our rules. It's what are the rules we're going to play. And obviously the hard one is goodwill, right? If I'm scared to talk, the hard one is candor. Just say out loud before you say truth to power, for you to say out loud, I'm going to speak truth to power. That gives yourself permission. Like you've made a promise as to where you're going to go. But the hard one is if you have some indicator that the person you're speaking with, they're being sneaky, or they're being a little mischievous, or you think they have, cards up their sleeve or something. It's vulnerable to say, I'm going to assume you have good intent, because someone could take advantage of that. In fact, there's probably listeners who are saying, that's foolish. Why would you ever do that? The reason you need to do it is because if you don't have it, why have the conversation at all? Like you're going to lose no matter what. So,
well, if you sense that you're missing one of those components, then do you get to that point where, hey, maybe it's not worth having this conversation?
Well, or at least asking the question, hey, are you open to having the same rules I have in this conversation? Or if I'm smelling like, hey, I don't think people are telling the truth, I think they're holding something back, I can ask them. If they think that I'm the one who's sneaky, I can say to them, hey, do you feel like I'm holding back, or do you feel like I have bad will? I actually am looking to take advantage of you. Do you believe that I have your best interest at heart as well as my own? I'd actually like both of us to win in this conversation as best we can, given the circumstances.
You're forward and you address the concern as soon as it comes to mind.
As soon as it comes to mind. It airs out the conversation. It just gives room. When I say transformation, I really mean that. Like some conversations, they just feel destined for awful. Like they're like a train wreck happening and you can't get your eyes off them. It's bad reality television or something. But it can turn one of those conversations in a totally different direction. It pulls the drama out of the dialogue. And in my experience, if you really want to get something done in a conversation, you don't want drama. You want neutral, curious, honest conversation. And this is like a recipe to have those things show up.
You set intentions in your conversations.
That's right. That's right.
Any other tips around that to apply meaningful conversations?
I guess the last thing I want to say about these principles for me has been, it's just really easy to assume that when I walk into a conversation, I'm the guy who has intelligence, goodwill, and candor. And if there's anything missing in the conversation, maybe it's the other person. And in truth, that's not the case. In truth, we're all human beings, and we all have unconscious bias, and we all have things that are underneath our own, like cards up our own sleeve. And I would invite folks to think of this less like, how can I get the person across the table to play by my rules, even though that'll happen, and make it more like, can I check with myself? Am I bringing my best thoughtfulness to this conversation? Am I trustworthy right now? And am I willing to speak the truth, even if I feel like I might look bad, wrong, or broken in the process? Start with yourself. And people smell that. When you're honest in that way, it has this kind of superpower impact in a conversation. Let's say you're an employee and you're trying to talk to your boss. Let's say you're a boss talking to your employee. Like, it works with every power differential. It puts you in a position of strength regardless of your positional status. And I like that. I like when humans put themselves in a position of strength, not trying to bully their way through a situation, but willing to methodically take their time and have good things happen increasingly, where a better outcome happens over and over again in small micro conversations. I promise if people make this a life practice, it will return more in a year than any strategic effort they do, any implementation they try to make happen in their culture, their initiatives to increase revenue and decrease costs or increase margins or whatever, take advantage of an opportunity in the marketplace. This is the kind of thing that will impact decision making. It'll impact the culture and how people feel in the workplace, that they feel a sense of safety and also challenge. And you can't grow if you don't have both support and challenge in the same place. I think that's what we've learned in our work at Tell Me Your Dreams is, if you want to create a space where your employees love their job, and as a result of loving their job, give their absolute best, create a space where good conversations happen every single day. And if those are the rules, those are the cultural values that you hold up all the time and you enforce them, you say, we don't have conversations that don't have these 3 ingredients. And if you don't bring those, you don't get to have a conversation. You go to timeout or something. I think in a year, but more likely a quarter of a year, you will absolutely transform your culture for the better.
This is your next principle, is having support and challenge in your culture.
Yeah, Tell Me Your Dreams, we do a lot of initiatives, right, where we actually help employees achieve dreams. So we started, we go into organizations, and the company itself pay us to work with employees to have the employees' dreams come true, where we actually hire therapists, train them as coaches. They go in and they work one-on-one with employees, invite them to figure out who they want to be and what they want in life, name it as a dream in front of the whole company, and then we coach them to pursue it. And what's fun about the work is it results in an employee feeling like, even if they don't have their dream job, they absolutely have a job where they can achieve their dreams. And folks who maybe were thinking about leaving their job like next month, they stay an extra 9, 12, 14, 2 years, because it's just so good in their place. And the qualitative and quantitative value of a wholehearted contribution in a workplace, it's incredible. So we do this work all the time, and we've tried a ton of different initiatives, but we've learned it's not simple. It's not just, hey, help people achieve their dreams and that'll work. There's other factors at play. So for example, if you're just running a company right now, you're listening to this podcast, you're thinking, I'm running a company and have my people and I want them to love their job. If you give them too much support, like too many free lunches, too many foosball tables, too many benefits, too many just, are you okay? Are you okay? Coddling going on. What you'll create is an entitled culture. You'll over-index on support and under-index on challenge. On the other side of the equation, if you over-index on challenge, it's a crazy industry. Like, I work a lot with direct-to-consumer e-com companies, and those agencies, man, they work so hard and it's really tough work, and they get a great return on their work, but man, it's really stressful. Now with work from home, they feel like they work 24/7. It's just high challenge already. And then if the culture they're working within has high expectations and no support, that crushes them. And that's why employees, really talented media buyers and that sort of thing, they go from company to company because they just get burnt out so quickly. They get crushed by the challenge. So the trick is to go, how do I create equal parts challenge to equal parts support, or really equal parts support, equal parts challenge? Because it turns out that's how people are not only giving their best contribution, but they actually are most satisfied in their work. If they're just on the side of challenge, just a little bit front edge of seat, all the data suggests that those are the people that are doing good work, meaningful work, and actually are enjoying the work more than people who are highly skilled, but not challenged. They're not on the edge of their seat, leaning forward, going, what's coming next? So that's the trick, is how do you find a balanced culture? And when I say balanced, I don't just mean like equilibrium. I mean, where you are intentional with the support that you're putting forward, not to be altruistic, but so that you can ask more of your people. And I would state that overtly. If I was leading an organization, I'd do this in my own organization. I say, we provide a lot of support because we ask a lot. And we want to make sure that you don't leave here burnt out, that you are really in a position of strength as you do your work.
I like it. You're challenged, but you're also supported, in that balance between the two. I like it because it also ties into the team aspect, that it carries in different directions within your organization. Then I see how that becomes part of the culture. Where are we supporting each other in the right way, But then are we chasing these goals and really being challenged professionally too?
Yeah. It's helpful too to go, if you're getting a lot of feedback, let's say you have a lot of turnover in your company and you're wondering like, what's going on? I can tell you right away what's going on. You have too much challenge and not enough support. That if burnout is primarily the thing that's in play, it's usually a challenge. And it's not necessarily that you are providing too much challenge. Like everyone that went instantly to work from home, if they weren't working from home beforehand, they went instantly into a complex reality that resulted in like massive stress for people, massive challenge. In Los Angeles, in the month of March 2020, suicide hotline numbers went up 8,000% in 1 month.
Jeez.
8,000%. So like none of that's going to make the news, although it should. But the idea of, and now by the way, people are working at home, which is really code for they live at work. And if they don't have good boundaries and good structures and good systems at work, by no fault of you, of your company, just their living situation, they're in a tough position they're in a lot of challenge. So that's why providing support in that context is so critical. And honestly, why our work at Tell Me Your Dreams has increased so much. It's because a lot of folks, they want to take advantage of the benefits of work from home. But if they're going to do that, just know more stress is going to come with that. And you need to implement support that speaks to the person in a way that isn't just about how you're going to get better at the job to help the company, but where the company communicates we actually care about you as an individual, distinct from what you do for us.
How do you assess when you're off and take action?
Yeah, again, if it's burnout, the symptom is support. If it's entitled people who keep coming and asking for raises and more perks, then it's like they don't have enough challenge, man. They got too much time on their hands. And it's a different symptom that you want to kind of follow the breadcrumbs back to the source. But I think it's just a good rule of thumb to know if people are burning out, they need more support. If the people are complaining because they're not getting enough, what have you done for me lately? It's probably too much support, not enough challenge. And then the question is, what kind of interventions do you introduce into your culture, into your environment that will calibrate the tension to the right spot for what you're trying to accomplish?
So that's unique to the company in terms of what course you need to take to make that balance happen.
100%. And it's funny, like everyone thinks like there's a lot of lip service given to culture, right? That old line from Peter Drucker, strategy or culture eats strategy for breakfast. I love the line, but oftentimes people say it and then they stop. They don't know what to do. They don't know what culture is. They don't know how do you engage it in such a way that you could actually influence it. And some people do it, they follow the Google, Facebook models of more free lunches, more foosball tables. But what do? You can't deliver foosball tables at work from home anymore. Like culture is a reality that's invisible, but everyone knows it's there. So how do you play with it? How do you work with it? And I think these are helpful principles that you can trust will inform you in your leadership to really manipulate and in a good way, engineer, maybe is a better word, engineer your culture to get a different result. But it's not direct. It's not like you put in a program and it's instantly you find out. It's indirect. You put in an engagement in and you watch. And based on how things adjust, then you keep tweaking. But culture is one of those things where it's not, the metaphor of an overgrown garden is real. Like weeds start popping up, and once you start seeing the weeds, it's a little late. So you want to constantly be tending the garden of your culture.
Be proactive on it.
Yeah.
You mentioned dreams, careers, aligning with dreams. Yeah. Can we go back to that a little bit and clarify what that means?
Yeah. Yeah, the way we define dreams is we talk a lot about identity. So if you think of the three primary states of being a human, humans are, like it's a sense of identity, who they are, and then they do things, they have actions, and then they have things, they have possessions, right? So people, it's be, do, and have are the three primary states of being human. And when it comes to describing someone's dream or aspiration, it's really tempting to go to the doing and the having first. It's really tempting to start with, oh, my dream is to have a car or to have a house or to have a spouse or something like that. Like health, wealth, and wisdom is what Benjamin Franklin talked a lot about. And I would argue that those are the fruit or the off, kind of what comes from the becoming. The doing and the having comes from the being. So as a result, when we talk about dreaming, we actually talk about it as aspirational identity. Who do you want to become? So let's say you and I decide we both want to be writers. We say, okay, great. We both want to be a writer. That's our aspirational identity. But for 𝐂𝐤𝐡, it's you want to get a 6-figure deal from Random House and a 5-book deal over 10 years. And that'll be proof to you that you become a writer. And I just want to blog every day for 30 days. And the milestones are different. The actions are different, but the identity stays the same. So it's fun. We get to go work with employees and invite them to go, who do I want to become first? And then we say, what would prove to you that you have become that person? What's the story you would tell yourself that would make that true? And then we coach you to go do it in the midst of a complex life. And then when the company ownership says, actually, no kidding, we are interested in you and your dreams. We want to support it. But of course, and I know listeners are already thinking this, if you're an owner and you're supporting that kind of thing, you might be thinking, why would I support my employees going after their dreams? Because that might mean they'll leave, right? Like I might lose my good employees if I do that. And it's a really understandable question. But the truth is, based off all the data, your employees are already thinking about leaving. They're already considering. Even you and I, as we think about what we're doing in our lives, we're always putting it back on the table and saying, is this still working for me? Do I want to keep doing this? So the question isn't how can you keep an employee for life? We've given that up a long time ago. It's how, while you have the person, they're giving their best. They're wholehearted while they're with you. And if they are ultimately going to leave, then you want to be the person who empowered them to do it, because they were probably on the exit plan anyways, and they probably had stopped giving their best a while ago. And this way it's transparent. You see it coming. You can replace the person. It's great. But more importantly, what if you could capture their heart while they're still with you? And they actually want to give their best while they're there. So our little pithy line is we say, invite dreams, discover drive, because that's what happens. People get after their identity and what they get to do with it. And it gets celebrated in the context of their work, and they create meaning on the job. And when that happens, all of a sudden, what shows up anywhere shows up everywhere. They get good at their dreams, and then they get good at their job. They actually get better in their relationships. They have healthy habits and practices that yield a better result in their life. They just get better. And when people get better, they're happier. They tend to thrive more than people who don't. So that's the philosophy behind it. And candidly, what's so fun is we work with a lot of companies that have young millennials, and they're not very good at dreaming. They often get a little paralyzed. They think they have to pick like a single dream for their life. And we invite them to scale way back and create minimal viable dreams. We actually have, ironically, a very low view of dreams. We want people to name a dream, an aspirational identity with milestones attached, so that they can achieve it as quickly as possible and realize they dreamt a little low, that there's bigger things to dream for. Because the tragedy is some people have dreams that they think are big, and they don't go after them until they're like in their 50s or 60s. And then they get them to happen and they go, well, that wasn't very interesting. And they could have figured that out in their 20s. So we want to expedite that process so they level up their dreams. It's a self-awareness exercise as a means to become more self-actualized. And we find that when people do that, again, they get a superpower that's pretty humbling to be around. Some of the companies we work with, their employees are in their 3rd+ dreams now, and they're after it, man. It's so exciting to see the kind of things, like the results that they're getting in their lives as a result of who they're becoming.
So find the aspirational identity, develop the milestones to get to there by your definition. And from the employer side, you should really be open to allowing your different team members to share their aspirations, aspirational identities, and essentially align their career path around it, and be open-minded that people aren't going to stay forever. Why not make the experience time you have together supportive and make it for the best for everybody?
That's sound right? That's it. And to be fair, it's complicated, right? I understand there's certain especially if your organization or industry is seasonally driven and people all of a sudden catch their dream in the middle of a stressful season. Some of our work is actually to coach people to find grit, to get through hard times, to not just switch because you can. Because when you switch to the new thing, guess what? It's going to get hard again and hard again. And that's part of the equation, is how do we help people not just experience new things, but actually become sturdier people, where they become strong and more awake at the same time. So that's part of the deal, is people are, just as our culture is constantly changing, so are people. And rather than hoping they'll stay the same, it's much more strategic to embrace the fact that they are changing, just like the ground underneath us is changing all the time. and to run with it. And by the way, you as owner, you're changing too. And these are skill sets that you could benefit from in the process.
Dane, what's the best mistake you've ever made?
Yeah, I saw that question before we did this podcast interview, and I hated it because I was tormented by mistakes. I thought of it two ways. One was the mistake I made was to assume that owners want the best from their people. I realized that there really is a certain critical mass of owners that they're a little bit more exploited than that. They're a little scared. They think their people exist to help them do what they want just because they're paying them. And I walked in with more of a stakeholder model. I assumed that, at the top tiers, large organizations, they really do want to make money, but they want to make money so that everyone can benefit. And the biggest mistake I made was assuming that there was more good capitalists than exploitive ones. But I'm hopeful. I'm discovering there are good ones, but they tend to there's a lot of good ones actually. But I'm much more quick to figure out which one are they in my work with them. But I also, the reason it was one of the best mistakes I've made personally is because in learning it, I've discovered I don't want to make those folks bad who are exploited. Like, they're hustling. They're just trying to make it work. But they're not going to take what we're offering. We're not for them, and they're not for us. So that's no problem. So that was a good learning. But the other one, the mistake I've seen, not so much the one that I've made as much, but the one I've seen is a little bit we talked about a second ago, this notion of positive turnover. When you have someone who you're inviting to dream about what their life and future could be, if that means that their journey is taking them somewhere else, that when people have assumed that, they've radically misread the situation. Positive turnover is anything but bad. In fact, it's 100% good. And a shrewd, long-term thinking boss understands this. They understand that employees are impermanent. They're going to constantly be coming and going, and they embrace it. They want to be the ones who get credit for launching them to the next thing. And in fact, I've seen some really clever owners who've done that at a level that is just amazing. They've become famous for bringing people in, training them up, and having them leave with a great job and a great title and a bigger pay somewhere else. And as a result, people are lining up to get in the door at their organization. And they just trust that they're more like a river, and they're going to have them for about 2 to 7 years, and they're really happy with that. They just said, that's how we are, and we're going to leave a heck of a lot better than when they come in.
That's such a great way to think about it. Dane, thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Oh, thanks for having me, and thanks for BossMove, man. This is so important. I think what you're building here is the kind of leadership I think that more of us need. I need it, and I'm just so grateful to contribute to the conversation. But you're the one who set the table, and so grateful for the way you serve and the way you open up really good thinking for more and more business leaders. So thanks for
it's been great. It's applicable across the board, whether you're still a student learning or a business owner, and it's stuff that school often misses. So why not make a point to focus on these lessons? Thanks, Dane. Appreciate it.